Hello and welcome to Love Overwhelming Podcast, where we believe when people are supported, that hope is developed, and that hope guides people in the next step in their recovery and life's journey. I'm your host today, Chuck Hendrickson, Executive Director of Love Overwhelming. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm excited to share part 2 of 3 of my interview with the Kelso Longview Ministerial Association Severe Weather Shelter Directors. In part 1, we heard why the pastors really wanted to get involved in what was going on and how they stepped up and really started the planning process and how they forged those relationships with the neighbors, the daycare, schools, and just community in general. In part 2, we're going to hear about how they continued that relationship and how really the input from the community and the schools and neighbors really guided the policies and procedures and the good neighbor agreement that was accepted by the city of Longview and that we were able to comply with throughout severe weather shelter. Before we get into the part 2, though, I want to tell you about our volunteer community page that we have on Facebook. If you go there, you can add a member request, and in that volunteer group and community, we post in there any type of volunteer opportunities and a lot of different community resources, and many times what is going on within the community is posted there as well. So if you're interested, you want to know what's going on, you want to keep on top of it, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a member request for our Love Overwhelming volunteer community Facebook page. All right, here we are, part 2 of 3 of my conversation with the Kelso Longview Ministerial Association Severe Weather Shelter Directors. Thank you. Hope you enjoy.
Speaking of dodging stones, it didn't come without its own bit of controversy. As we all know, we did a public forum, and there was close to 250 people there, standing room only. It was, I think, at that moment too, that really opened my eyes to see that, hey, there are a group of people that want to make this work together, and let's come together as a community and move forward with this. We value and we're hearing, we are listening to what you have to say. And I think that really showed moving forward in our good neighbor agreement and even the services that we offered and within the neighborhood. So I'm interested to hear thoughts about when we went through that and had the community. James, you touched on it a little bit, but we had that forum and moving forward. How did you guys see the KLMA and the community come together in unity? Because at first it was headbutting, and then after a while, it there was a lot of unity, as we know. We'll hear later on from one of the neighbors who was absolutely against the shelter being in that location, but who is now a supporter of ours and helping us look for other locations. So I'm just curious to hear from you guys about that and what your thoughts are. And like I said, for me, it really showed that there was, we were here, but it came together eventually.
Well, as pastors, we all know that fear is never the best motivator for anything, but it's a powerful motivator. And people, when they're experiencing fear, need to be heard. And so part of what was done was trying to build a mechanism in where people couldn't necessarily divert the conversation from what needed to be discussed at hand so that we could continue to move forward, but recognizing that there needed to be a mechanism for people to feel heard and to be able to express their fears and address them with care and concern. And I think that is one of the things that we've all kind of tacitly mentioned, but with that good neighbor agreement that we put together, disseminated amongst the households that were in the vicinity of the shelter, and then holding the meetings after the good neighbor agreement, as well as fulfilling what we said we were going to do, made a huge difference as to the perception, not just of the shelter, but also of the people who came to the shelter. And it goes back to that relationship building piece, which is, I don't think that can be overstated. It's the model pretty much for everything we do as pastors. So I think that's a huge piece of what got brought to this.
Yeah, I think that as pastors, we responded with pastoral care to people. what Allison has said, we listen to people. And when people have a chance to be listened to, it makes them feel respected, and it makes them feel like their concerns are valid. And that's important. It was important for us so that we didn't miss something. A lot of our policies and procedures that we initially developed were modified or updated based on feedback from our neighbors and feedback from the people we were actively engaging with from the community. And in that process, the things I kept hearing time and time again from our neighbors and community members that were actively engaging with us is that we were doing what we said we would do. And we were following through on our policies and our procedures, and we were completely open. We weren't hiding anything. And that complete openness and the fact that we followed through and did exactly what we said we would do, that builds trust. I think that was a crucial piece of that sense of going from a contentious relationship to a how can we work together to make this even better. And I think that we only got there through establishing that trust and building that trust. And I was had the honor of hosting our Good Neighbor Agreement meetings after every time we had the shelter open. And having that space and that opportunity to engage specifically with our next door neighbors, both business wise and residential wise, and getting to address things that maybe had fallen through the cracks, or just getting to provide them information so they could provide it with people who needed to know in their circles, was crucial to having success. And it worked. It clearly worked. So.
And I just want to add to that the neighborhood and the community really did step up. And when there was this collective action that provided a sustainable model that was able to earn some trust, there was some reciprocity from the community, neighbors showing up to volunteer. We had city councilors volunteering, police involvement, just volunteering. We as a group spent some time just with county commissioners and leaders in the city, and they really did step up. And I just want to affirm their role in through financial support from the city and county, but even just the man hours of neighbors. And so it was neat to see that relationship develop, and it happened on both sides. I think as the trust was built and we were able to run a safe and sustainable shelter model, a lot of neighbors who were initially reluctant really came on board, and not even just with their vocal support, but with their man hours and financial support. And so just really grateful for the community and how they participated.
Yeah,
it was nice.
Sorry. I was just going to say, it seems it's much easier to point the finger and blame when there's someone else who's responsible. But if you're actively involved in the work, you are part of the solution to the problem. And so I think the longer that the winter went on, the more different voices from different areas that might have been pointing fingers were now a part of the solution to what we were doing in our community. And then it's our work, it's not their work that I'm upset about. Mm-hmm. And I just think that this whole winter has really shown me that actually I think the antidote to fear is trust. Like both Allison and Nick were saying, there's a sense that if you can build up that relationship of trust, and they know that if I have a concern, I have a phone number I can call and someone who will answer that call and will follow up on the concern I had. And then I know that I have a way to be an ongoing relationship. And I think that word relationship and that word trust were central to the ways that we were able to make this happen together.
Yeah, and for those of you that are listening, watching, we were able to set up just a warm line for when we were open 24/7 that anybody, any of the neighbors could call if they saw anything going on, and we would be able to respond either ourselves or have staff go and respond. And I thought that, I agree that built that trust. There was obviously that needed to happen to regain a little bit of rapport and trust with the community for at least our organization in working with this population. But it was amazing to me to see when I would go out and go around and do the walkthroughs of that, I would see community or neighbors that were kind of looking out as well. And many neighbors, as we were walking out there, thanked us. They just opened up their front door, opened up their window and said, "Thank you. We feel really safe knowing that you guys are here." And in fact, we had some neighbors that said they feel more safe when the shelter was open than when it was closed, because we were there doing those perimeter checks and neighborhood watches. So yeah, just incredible time to see that go from where it was to even now where it is.
It was kind of fun to answer that phone because most of the time the experience was that people were surprised there was a live person on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience too.
And I'd also add, just around the relational piece and overcoming fear, it was really helpful as neighbors and other volunteers just got to know the human stories of shelter residents, people experiencing homelessness. And to me, that was just a huge side benefit to this ministry, for people to have their eyes open to the human face behind this big issue. And just even to understand the complexity of poverty, and simple answers didn't stand up to reality, as you see many people in these situations due to tragedy or situations outside of their control, or just seeing that this whole issue of homelessness is just real people with real stories. And I think that helps even alleviate some of the fear of the other when volunteers just got to be relational with the guests and service recipients. I know that was great to see some of our church members volunteer, and just for them to have that relational connection was just a huge gift of this ministry. And I think that went a long way to seeing people, not just a big issue. So.